A Sangoma, they're more of diviners, they're more into the spiritual work. That's why Sangoma, it's more like ingoma, music, frequency. As a kid, like you dream about herbs, but at the same time, you also be mentored and guided. Normally, I need permission because I'll have to get information from his guides. My guide and his guides, they normally have to come into an agreement.
Hi, welcome to Indigo Jedi Podcast. Today's episode, we have a South African traditional healer who's here to share their wisdom and knowledge with us about how they treat people and how they've learned so much about plant medicines and natural ways of healing and treating. So I'm joined today by Thebe Ya Mokone, and he's a South African traditional healer, and the correct term for his discipline is eGedla. It's slightly different to a Sangoma, and in today's episode we'll talk about the differences. But welcome, Thebe. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks. And how are you? And thank you so much for the opportunity and the platform to share my knowledge. It's eGedla, yes.
I'm so glad that you could join us today and share your knowledge and wisdom. So tell us, Thebe, how did you become eGedla?
Okay, so for one to become eGedla, it has to be um, a calling. Let me just talk generally about maybe a Sangoma to make it simpler. Is Sangoma and eGedla, there's not much of a difference, but there is, which I will try to explain in depth as we proceed. It's a calling. With me, it was a calling whereby you're called to do this. It can come as dreams, signs, or like a whole lot happens during that phase of awakening. We normally call it ingulo, whereby you kind of like get sick, um, so that you can respond to this call. It's a call. You first have to receive a call before you can dwell onto this or before you can tap into this element. So it was a call. I used to have dreams. I used to have trances. I used to have a whole lot of weird things happening. I used to dream about plants, herbs, and things like that. You dream about your ancestors. You dream about communication. So there was a whole lot of awakening and communication in between. So it was a call first. Then I had to consult.
So when did this start for you? When did this start for you, this calling, these dreams and weird experiences?
Should I say 2020? 2020. Yeah, no, I'll say it's recently, yes, 2020. But then the signs were always there. But for me to be aware, this calling doesn't start probably when you initiate or when you become aware. It has always been there. Signs were always there. It's been happening. But for me to be fully aware, it was 2020. For me to tap into this, to be aware.
But I think you've told me your uncle and you have got other family members who are traditional healers. Is that correct? So it's in your family.
Yes, my late aunt, yes, you see, it exists within the family. It's a calling. It exists within a family. Yes.
Okay. So I guess you're carrying on the family knowledge um, forward, right? Your family is a family of eGedlas and traditional healers, and now you're the one carrying that knowledge and yeah, keeping it for the next generation, I guess.
True, true, true. So yes, within my family or within my lineage, we do have eGedla, of which in my language you call them dingakachubia because ke Batswana, right? So we call them dingakachubia. So we have eGedla and we do have sangomas within my lineage.
Okay. So tell me, Tebe, what is the difference between Sangoma and eGedla?
Um, a sangoma, they're more of diviners, they're more into the spiritual work. That's why Sangoma, it's more like ingoma, music, frequency, trances. they're more into that field of spirituality, initiating people, dealing with spiritual matters, casting out spirits, dancing, you understand? So they're more into the spiritual aspect of things, about trances, dancing, divination, you understand, phone reading, things like that. Then eGedla, it's more into the plants, herbs. We can call them herbalist, right? But they both have base of ancestors, but they just do or they specialize in different fields. Even eGedla, it does have like there's a spiritual guide behind everything, but there's a difference, you understand, in practice and the way they do things and the way they show up. They're different. eGedla aligidi, eGedla doesn't dance.
I guess the Sangomas are very well known in South Africa, um, maybe because they have a strong organization. I remember in the olden days, I used to work in the medical scheme industry in the early 2000s, and I remember they were trying to get the Sangomas some of their remedies. They were trying to get it approved by the medical schemes. Or I remember that was going on at the time, discussion. So I know they also do use some plant medicines and remedies, but they became very popular in the news, I guess, around that time. So they're much more well known in South Africa, the Sangomas, well, maybe just from my perception. What do you think?
Mhm. No, they are the most commonly known. Amagetla, they are rare, but they do exist and they do work hand in hand because Amagetla, as much as Sangomas, they have the knowledge of Umuti and things like that, but Amagetla is their specialty. Do you see the difference? There are things that I can't do that Sangomas do. I can't initiate someone's spirit because there are spirits, family spirit that needs to be initiated to be a Sangoma or that needs to be healed or that spirit that needs to be casted out or things like that. There are certain things that I can't do. They are more into the spiritual matters. You understand? Yes, yes, yes. They are more into the spiritual matters. They are energy workers, if I were to say. That's why they work with frequency, drums, the dancing. So they do have herbs, but Amagetla they specialize more on herbs. They do work hand in hand. A Sangoma can go to eGedla because they're more in depth when it comes to herbs. You understand? A Sangoma can come to eGedla that I need 1, 2, 3, then we can give them.
I see. So yeah, maybe this is a good place to talk about how you actually treat your patients. What kind of stuff do your patients come to you with? What kind of issues do they have?
So normally eGedla, they somehow specialize, right? Not that like they normally specialize. Not intentionally so, but it's a spiritual alignment. So you'll find that a specific girl normally deals with people who need immunity or who need plants or herbs for istrito, or which I'll say, I don't know how to define istrito in English, but then we as a Magela, we normally specialize, right? So first of all, I have Istunya. Istunya is the one that helps me to diagnose. Does it make sense? So there's something. So normally Getla doesn't really consult or divine. But then with me, I do consult, I do check people because I use Istunya so that I can check your problem. So if I can see that, oh, you're struggling with this, you have a spiritual attack, or maybe you're possessed with something, then I'll have herbs and certain things that I'll have to use to clean you, to cleanse you, and to remove whatever thing that is bothering you or attacking you. So I have herbs for different things. You know, if you have I don't know if maybe you need cleansing or you're physically sick or your periods are uncontrollable. You find that someone they normally have periods whereby they are prolonged or they're painful. I have herbs for that. You know, I can deal with that. If someone they have struggled with nose bleeding, things like that, you just need to know that there are specific herbs for different things. there are things which you call ispulwan, when someone have these weird wounds whereby they just keep opening up to a point whereby and they end up having to remove a part of your body. We have herbs for that. So I just need to firstly diagnose and understand the problem before I give you specific medication and herbs for that.
Oh wow! And how do you know what herbs? Is this what was taught to you by your late uncle?
As eGedla, you dream about herbs, but at the same time, you also be mentored and guided. Because even your guides and your ancestors will force you force is a bad word, but they will want you to channel into this field whereby some of the things you'll have to learn through other people. That you need to be in this element and learn immunity. So I was guided as well. I had a mentor. Gobela, it's normally a term used for Sangomas, but yes, I'll call him a Gobela, who guided me and taught me herbs. Amongst other people, I was guided by a lot of people, Mkhulu Mvulane, my uncle, dreams. So the knowledge was just somehow connecting different knowledge from different people, which has just been a combination of knowledge about herbs and things like that.
And the herbs, where do you get the herbs? Do you grow them yourself, or do you I don't know, do you have someone who grows them for you? How do you find, because these are not like common herbs, right? These are probably very rare type of plants and herbs that you're using.
Some are rare, some are common. Some of them probably you have them in your yard, you're probably just not aware. Yeah, like it's true, like they do exist, they are common. It's just that it's the information that is not popular and it's not well known. So yes, they don't. So some of these herbs, because we learned about them, we know how the tree looks like. So some of them you can go look for them. If you check my TikTok, I was out. There was a particular plant that we were, taking there. So some of them, if they're available and if they're accessible at that particular time, you can just go and get them from forest or any place. But then others we do buy them. Other people have this market for herbs whereby you can just buy them.
Maybe let's go. How do you consult people? Do they have to come physically to you, or can they even consult online?
Um, Physical consultations, I do them and also online. But because people these days they have moved into digital world, so they are more comfortable with online. But preferably, I like physical consultations because it's easy to channel someone, and also if you need to give them some treatment, you can give them. So I do online and physical.
And when it's online, are you still able to diagnose the patient? You said you have some method of diagnosing to understand what their problems are. So even though it's online, you can still do that effectively.
You can still diagnose this. You can still channel someone the same way they manage to bewitch someone from a distance. How do they do it? They don't need them to be present. It's just anything that links me with you. That's what I can use as something that I can use to channel you. It's just like an IP address or anything. Whether it's a video, it's a picture or anything. It's just about channeling you. Anything that's your identity or
Okay, so you need something from the person, some sort of identity, like a picture or something, and and then you also need their permission. I expect, right? You can't just channel anyone. You need their permission.
it depends what you're using. Um, So if I'm using my ancestors and my guides, need to, normally I need permission because I'll have to get information from his guides. My guide and his guides, they normally have to come into an agreement so that they can give me some information which I need to know and which is necessary. But there are other means of consultations that I won't go much on that. I'll just focus here. Other people, they can get to know your stuff without you having to give permission to them.
Okay, interesting. And you mentioned your ancestors a lot, so they're very important in your work. How do you communicate with them? Do you dream about them, or do you have other ways of also communicating with them?
Dreams, there's something called ukphahla. I don't know what is ukphahla. Whereby we just communicate probably using candles and other stuff and other things that we use to communicate, whereby you just have a platform where it's a particular corner whereby you can engage. The same way people pray, the same way people have their own spaces where they can connect with their gods, things like that. We also have such spaces, some where you can communicate, channel them, and ask for guidance and just communicate about anything.
So what is it? How does it feel like when you're talking to your ancestors? Does it feel like you're talking to me, or is it slightly different?
It depends. There's a type of a communication of a trance, right? When someone goes into a trance, whereby they transcend into another dimension, whereby they're actually engaging with their ancestors, whereby they can, get to hear them physical and they can get to see them. They're in a trance. They've tapped into that spiritual realm, right? But then if I am just praying or if I'm just partying in my corner, I can't see them. Um, I can't hear them. It's just me talking the same way people pray. They can't see God at that particular moment, but it's just you delivering the message and talking to them. It's not a conversation. So there is a trance whereby it's like a mutual type of a communication. There are dreams whereby you can engage with them. Then there's also a way of a part in your corner whereby just like you're more like praying because they can't talk to you back, but you can talk to them.
So these are different ancestors have different ways of communicating with you. Is that correct?
So different people communicate different with their types of ancestors. Others they do hear things, others they can hear, others they see, others they feel, others with intuition. So ancestors they channel us in different ways.
Okay. So there is a lot of more people awakening to traditional healing, and I'm sure you're seeing that. I'm seeing that. And what do you think? What can people do um, to learn more about this type of stuff and to become more aware about traditional medicines, plant medicines, and the stuff that you're talking about?
Okay, first of all, I do acknowledge that there's a whole lot of awakening which is happening, but it's actually happening in a bigger scale. It's not necessarily in South Africa only, but people are awakening. But if we are awakening, we have to awaken in ways of our ancestors because they are our closest link to God, they are our closest link to the higher dimension. So if I am awakening, if I am tapping into my higher self, my ancestors become a link. They're the closest thing to me that is already vibrating in the spiritual realm. So for me to awaken, normally I need to tap into ways of my ancestors, the traditions which are in line with who I am, right? So people need to know who they are first and where they come from, because that's somehow a channel and a portal for them to awaken and to get to connect really. If you know, oh, I'm a person from this water element, probably need to go to water more often to channel. Or my ancestors, they have this particular totem, or my name is, or your surname. So first of all is to know who you are and what you carry and where you come from. That creates a proper base and a foundation for you to grow into this thing. Because the first thing you need to channel your ancestors. When you channel your ancestors, you're channeling yourself because they're one with you. So the first thing you need to lay that foundation first. That's the most fundamental and important thing.
Yeah, how do people even, I mean, I don't even know my ancestors, or I've never spoken to them or channeled. How do people go about that if they're not, coming from a family like yours? Because your family was in this, but I don't think most people are. How would we even know how to go about channeling our ancestors?
Normally, people first approach is that I need to see my ancestors, I need to hear them, which I feel like that's the most, I don't know, it's far-fetched. That's way too ahead. The first thing you lay a foundation, you become in your element, you become one with them, you create portals for them to channel you. Who were your ancestors and what is it that they were doing? You create a room and a space for them to work hand in hand with you. You see, probably this is one of the clothes that they used to have. Probably I know my ancestors, they used to love this thing. They used to operate in such spaces. So when you become in your element, it's you creating space for them and creating room for them. So you must probably know a bit of your history about how they used to operate and how they used to do things. You start by basic things. We normally use candles to pasha or to channel them, or I get my candles. Or they normally use such incense or impepo, I get that. Or they normally use to water and maize meal to channel and or whatever that awakens them. So just being in their element, the first thing is to be in your element. So it's just a matter of knowing that if I want to connect with this particular person, what is it that I must do and what is their thing? Let's say you're my ancestor. For me to be in my element, of which, since you're part of me, you understand? And for me to be in my element, I need to channel you because you're a part of me. You understand? I need to know you. Oh, Mr. Deepak used to love 1, 2, 3. I know that I can channel him or he can channel me easily if I have this crystal stones or chakra stones, or if I have this, if I know these mantras, or if I do these particular affirmations, because I know you and that's how I can evoke you.
Oh, I see. So you're taking something that your ancestors were using a lot or had a connection to, and that's what you're using to create your foundation, and then that makes it easier to channel them. So you're saying, but then what are the elements? You mentioned elements, and you mentioned water as an element. So when you said that, I was thinking, okay, the elements are water, air, earth, fire, and ether, right? There's the five platonic elements. Were you referring to that, or are you referring to something else?
No, I was referring to something else. So now, as Thebe Ya Mokone, my elements, eGedla, the person that I work hand in hand, or the spirit that got to me or that possessed me, even though it sounds wrong, the spirit of mountains. He used to spend time in mountains. You understand? The spirit of eGedla. For me to be in my element, I need to channel mountains. I need to spend time there. That's how I can evoke those spirits, because they resided there. They spend time there. You understand? You put them in spaces that are familiar for them to operate. You understand? Some spirits, they can't operate because you're not in your element. Some people, they have this thing, but then you always find yourself in taverns and clubs and things like that. They don't have a space to operate. They don't recognize that you're not in your element. You understand? Create spaces that are accommodative for them. Ge ke tswela pele ke re ke Mokwena, my totem is crocodile. I'm a person of water. So I also need to be in that element whereby I can go to bodies of water, and so that I can evoke and channel those ancestors. So that's you being in your element. Other people, they need to find certain beats. These are physical things that create portals for our ancestors to channel us. Even physical things that we wear. Being in your element includes a diet. There are certain things that when you eat them, they contaminate you. They kind of like make you dirty, and your spirit, you can't channel and evoke certain spirits. For instance, I don't eat pork.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting because pork is also, um, I guess, looked down upon in many religions, right? It's not, it's not only the eGedlas. There are a lot of other tribes and cultures that don't eat pork for some reason.
Yes, 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 yes. From different types of religions and practices, they don't eat pork.
Okay, so that affects your channeling ability, is what you're telling me, for you.
It does, because it's not everything's about spirituality. I mean, like, everything has to be balanced. The physical aspect of things and the spiritual aspects of things, because this spirituality has to work through me, which I mean the physical realm. So even in my physical realm, I need to have my portals open, my chakras open, ready to channel. So there shouldn't be any form of blockages. So I also have a role and a part to play.
So you mentioned the first step is to know your element and then also know your ancestors' element. so you can set a space for them to channel effectively, and then also be aware of what you're putting into your body, because that affects your ability to channel.
And you must also know physical things that they need to channel you. Maybe they need a certain beadwork, or they need a certain stick, or they need a certain clothing that they recognize.
Wow, Thebe, that was really interesting. I learned so much about eGedla. I hope I'm pronouncing it better now. And how you guys work, and what kind of treatments you do, and also the difference between eGedla and Sangoma. So that was very, very insightful for me. Guys, I'm going to have Tebe's TikTok link in the video. Just look on the description below. He's very active on TikTok. He's also quite active on Facebook. I'll have that link there. You can get in touch with Thebe using those links. And Thebe, anything else you want to leave us with?
Regarding eGedla and how we actually use herbs, right? It's an understanding of energy, that everything is energy. Certain herbs that we use them in accordance to the properties that they have or the energy that they carry. Does it make sense? Without having to reveal much, that's our understanding of herbs. That probably a particular animal, because not necessarily herbs, but we also use particular parts of certain animals. I know that this animal carries this property, or it carries this energy. So with that understanding, we can take certain properties or certain energy frequencies from certain animals to cure and heal certain ailments, things like that.
Yeah, that ties in a lot with the work that I do, because it's all about energy in the healing modalities that I use, especially homeopathy and quantum resonance. It's all about energy. So it's very exciting for me to hear that traditional South African healers are also aware of the energies of different plants, animals, and they're able to use those to bring people back to balance. So it's very similar approaches that we're using. Thebe, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. I'm very grateful for your time and your insight, and sharing just openly such interesting stuff. Guys, you can get hold of Thebe on the details below, and thank you very much for watching.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you.